Well, welcome everybody to another edition of WCW 2005, and it's time for Rising Sun Revolution, live from the Saitama Super Arena in beautiful Saitama, Japan, just outside of Tokyo. As in front of a crowd of 38,000 people, we've got a huge show, including Rob Van Dam taking on Monty for the World Heavyweight title, the finals of the Women's Tag Title Tournament, a legends match between Sting and Shinya Hashimoto, a World Tag Title match between America's Wanted and Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, and much more. So let's get going with the show. We'll actually start out before the show with a pre-show match, as in that pre-show match, Captivation, Angel Fox, Lexi James, and Lizzie Dumas defeat All That Alyssa Alexander, Celine Cartier, and Nanny Hart in 12-13, when Lizzie Dumas pins Nanny Hart, guessing with moonsault. This is a pre-show match to get some woman on pay-per-view card before the show. Honestly, just like there weren't any like men who I really felt that bad about not having on a show, but the women, they were a tag title tournament, and this is sort of a big show for the women with Aja Kong, the finals of the women's tag title tournament, and a big women's match. So I figured get some of the our upper mid card women on the show here. So let's get the 65, perfectly solid opener, as 90 gets a 39, Celine Cartier gets a 67, Alyssa Alexander gets a 50, Lizzie James gets a 68, Lexi James gets a 52, and Angel Fox gets a 57. And then we have our opening video, focusing, of course, on, WCW beating Japan, Monty Brown going for the world title against Rob Van Dam, the Legends match between Sting and Shinya Hashimoto, the big feud between AJ Styles and Chuck Palumbo, and much, much more. And, that video gets a 77. Nothing too fancy here, but, just a solid opening video here. And that opening match is a big cruiserweight, well, not a big cruiserweight match because these two men are two of our top stars on Revolution, but it's a huge match between the holder of the Call Shot title opportunity after winning the Mayhem tournament, Billy Kidman, and of course, Rey Mysterio Jr., the cruiserweight legend, one of the biggest stars in WCW, and a fan favorite here in Japan. And, this is two men who, honestly, were past friends, former tag partners, former stable partners, but are now, really, quite unfortunately, no longer great friends, anymore. These are two men who are just going after each other right from the start of the match. And, they just don't like each other anymore. Any past friendship or camaraderie is just totally gone. And they, go all out right from the start. Kidman goes a little back to his, face tendencies, with lots of high flying right away, hitting a baseball, sliding a big dive on his former tag partner, Mysterio Jr., then, going on the, big heel offensive tear on the outside, kicks, stomps, using his relative size advantage over Rey to toss him into the guardrail, big running knee strike on the outside, picks him up, big suplex on the floor, finally tossing him in, and just, working on his back and knees, but eventually, Rey fights back, hitting, hitting an side moonsault, hitting his own, big suplexes on Kidman, going up top for a, going top for hits her from the top, rolling into an attempt at a Frankensteiner, but Kidman turns it into a powerbomb, because you can't powerbomb Kidman, but Kidman can powerbomb you. Kidman, going for some submissions early on, trying to continue to wear it on Mr. Jr. and keep him grounded, but Rey continues to fight back. Rey, does his own high flying, tosses Kidman to the outside, hitting a big dive from the top onto Kidman, then going, jumping on the rails and hitting Kidman with a Frank Rana from the railing to the floor, continuing to take advantage of him, but, eventually back in the ring, Rey goes for a springboard Frankensteiner, but Kidman, again, turns it into an electric chair, blocks it, gets out of the way. So, Rey eats the mat, goes back on offense, goes for the Kid Crusher, but Rey gets out of it. Rey hits a backside for a near fall. Rey goes for the, goes for the big Bulldogs, hitting up for the springboard Hurricanrana, but April Hunter just, basically, holds Rey's leg. He goes out, Rey then does a big dive on April Hunter, getting a pop from the crowd, but Kidman comes from behind and attacks Kidman, attacks Rey from behind. Rey goes back on offense eventually. Kidman hits a low blow, kicks him, Kid Crusher, 1, 2, 3, And Kidman gets a big one here on Rising Sun Revolution over Mysterio Jr. in a little over 90 minutes in a match, which is kind of disappointing as it only gets an 82. But Kidman gets an 87, Ray gets a 95. Only downsides here as far as the match goes were Ray has a poor gimmick and poor announcing and poor color commentary, but nothing too terrible here. Like a really great match, as these guys go out all each other because they just don't like each other. But in the end, Billy Kidman gets another huge one here, as he's still the Cult Shot champion and a man really on a roll here in WCW at the moment. And then post-match, Kidman and Abraham celebrate to the boos the crowd. This only gets a 64 because they don't know English, which I guess it being going off charisma is kind of fair, but maybe I should have done all these ratings on star quality or something. I don't know. Again, not the end of the world, but still kind of annoying. But next up, after Kevin and Ray head to the back, is the entrance of Aja Kong, making her way to the crowd to a decent pop, as the entrance put over her legendary hair career in Japan, and but she's facing a huge challenge in the form of WCW former Women's World Champion Joanie Laurer, who has been on quite a run since returning to the wrestling ring last summer. And she has been gone for basically a month after being suspended by Teddy Long, but now he's back. But now she's back, ready to face off against Aja Kong in a battle of someone who claims to be the evolution of women's wrestling and one of the most legendary competitors in history of Japanese women's wrestling. And what we get is a very solid match, as Aja Kong is getting older, but she's still a decent, a good competitor. And Joanie Laurer is Joanie Laurer. She's not a great worker, but she's charismatic and she's really over here, even here in Japan. And these two women, basically it's just a series, a spots, Aja Kong is getting older. And honestly, she's the Japanese women, because it's sort of the doldrums of the Joshi era, aren't that over, but she still gets a respectful pop, and most of the audience still knows who she is. But she hits her Uraken early for a near fall. Joanie fights back. Joanie does her power spots, looking impressive, hitting the big slams on Aja Kong, hitting a big boot, getting in some brawling. Aja fights back herself, throwing some stiff shots. Match spills to the outside. Aja throws Joanie into the guardrail, hits a big, Vader style splash on Joanie. Then tosses her back in, goes for another Uraken back fist, but Joanie gets out of the way. She goes back on offense, big gut wrench suplex, big clothesline, doing some mounting and punching. Aja fights back, hits a big slam, big boot, goes for a big powerbomb of her own, but Joanie Laurer blocks it, hits a backdrop. Then Joanie takes over, and in a little under 10 minutes, basically at 10 minutes, Joanie Laurer takes over, hits the big powerbomb, and she gets the pinfall victory here at Saitama Super Arena over a Joshi legend. 1, 2, 3. So yeah, nothing too fancy here, just a solid match. Unfortunately, Aja Kong is getting older in game and can't quite do, a long match. And she only gets a 51 here. Joanie Laurer gets an 82. Solid stuff, like I said, this was a match in theory to, draw in the, sort of the Joshi fans and sort of like the, in theory, like the non-WCW Japanese fans getting a big Japanese star here, which I realize isn't really true in game, but I try to play realism even if the game doesn't count for it. But a solid win here for Joanie as she gets the win here. And after the match, celebrate, to a 67. And okay, so unfortunately, the language barrier is happening even with star quality. So I'll just have to accept there's going to be some goofiness with people's entrances and awarenesses and all that other stuff. Okay, I mean, again, not the end of the world. That may affect the show a little bit, but I hope not. And now it's time for a blow off to a feud that's been for the past, I would say, 2 months, basically, kind of since the start of the split, at least a few weeks in, as Keenan Sharpe takes on Ken Anderson in an I Quit match. And here's the problem, is these guys, they're not as over in Japan as they are in the US. They've had 4 matches, so honestly, this match is kind of a disappointment. They actually do almost as well. Like they do almost as well in ring, but it's not quite as good as their previous matches, which I can sort of put off to like they're in Japan, they're not getting quite as a good reaction. They're both young wrestlers, so they don't know quite how to deal with it. But they do their fighting, and they're both trying to lock in submissions early. Anderson going for seriously sleepers, chokeholds, arm bars. Well, Sharpe is continuing trying to get in his guillotine hold, or some sort of knee lock, or some sort of boudoir arm bar. But after hitting Muay Thai kicks. But Ken Anderson consistently fights back, throwing Sharpe around, brawling up the ramp to the top of the ramp, hitting a big couple series of suplexes on Sharpe, and then locking in, sort of a camel clutch on Sharpe on the top of the ramp, trying to get him to submit, but Sharpe fights out of it. Eventually, Matt gets back into the ring. Big knee strike from Keenan Sharpe, trying to lock in Anderson in a series of submissions, but Anderson either blocks it or gets out of it. But eventually Sharpe does go a little too, go for a rush in too quick. Anderson takes over, hits his Kenton bomb, then hits another one, and then picks up Sharpe up against and hits a third one, locks in a sort of modified crossface, and with nowhere to go, Keenan Sharpe has to say, "I quit," with nowhere to go, as he has to admit defeat and surrender to the man he's been feuding with for the past couple months here. As in a big win, Ken Anderson gets the win here at the Saitama Super Arena at Rising Sun Revolution. And like I said, this was sort of a disappointing match. Gets a 54. Sharpe gets a 64. Ken Anderson gets a 54. Like I said, this was fourth time, so yeah. Repetitive booking, low experience. Yeah, unfortunately, I sort of I hope this wouldn't happen, but I wasn't surprised by this happening. Maybe I should have done one less match to set this up, or shit happens. Not the end of the world, but kind of disappointing. And post match, Anderson celebrates as it gets a 45 again because of the language barrier. I might set the rest of these guys up on overness as far as they're celebrating, just to test that out here. Yeah. But before our next match, which is the finals of the Women's Tag Title Tournament, we get highlights of the tournament, including the debut of All That Alice Alexander, along with Millie Osaka, Celine Cartier's and Andy Neidhart's to run through the tournament, Lexi James, and Angel Fox's shocking loss, and of course, European DisUnion getting to the finals, including defeating Cartier and Neidhart in the finals of the American side. And then we see highlights of also Manami Toyota and Kyoko Inoue as we get ready for their match coming up in just a moment here. As this gets a 55, solid stuff, nothing, fancy. Just a quick, 2-minute video to set things up, the tournament that's happening for the past couple weeks. And it's a really big match here, as, Toyota and Inoue are both legends. Manami Toyota, you could argue, is one of the best wrestlers, regardless of gender, of the past, since basically the early 90s. Kyoko Inoue is a solid part of the, Joshi wrestling since the 90s, a solid hard hitter, big good brawler, suplex, hits lots of suplexes, big power wrestler, and Manami Toyota is, Manami freaking Toyota. On the other hand, European DisUnion have gotten to the finals, all through their guile and will and submission and striking ability. So this will be an interesting match. Really solid match. What's the word I'm looking for here is, Toyota, like I said, the Joshis aren't as over as you think, mainly because this is a sort of a low period for Joshi wrestling in Japan, even in real life and both in the game. They're still salty over, but Joshi wrestling's already sort of on a downslide at the beginning of the 2000s, and they haven't there's been no great turnaround in game, both through TEW 2016 and 2020 as I've been simulator. But regardless, Toyota, Inoue are still great, and they still look good here. Inoue gets to throw both Basic and Colt around, big power moves, big lariats, and Toyota gets to get hit all her spots. She gets to fly around, hit a huge missile drop kick on both women, hit a big dive on both women. Early on, she tries to hit the Ocean Cyclone suplex on Colt, but Colt turns it into a submission. Basic gets to play MMA style a bit, locking the women in various submissions. But our Joshi babyfaces fight back. Kyoko hits some, big moves. Toyota hits some big moves of her own for some near falls. But in the end, Candy Colt, a former Women's World Champion, gets in there and with Inoue hits a few big suplexes, then hits her icebreaker finisher, which I forget what I marked it is. I'll have to double check her actual finishers. But I'm going to imagine it's some sort of modified suplex and, big moves. And in the end, the Joshi women don't have to take submission loss here, but they do take the pinfall loss here as Nita Colt gets the pinfall victory over Kyoko Inoue in a 12 minutes and 30 seconds or so. And European DisUnion become the first, at least in this timeline, WCW Women's World Tag Team Champions. Really solid match as this gets a 79, Colt gets a 71, CNP gets a 63, Kyoko Inoue gets a 64, and Manami Toyota with an overness of I think only in the low high 50s, if I remember rightly, still gets a friggin' 83 because she's still Miami fucking Toyota. So a really great match. European DisUnion win the titles, take the titles, hold them high, and this gets a 65. Okay, so the good news is if I just rate them on overness, they don't get hit for their lack of Japanese speaking ability, which is interesting. All right, but yeah, really, again, I was never going to put Toyota Inoue over for the titles just because, they're, the American fan base has no idea who they are, at least with the expansion of WCW throughout the world. Colt and Busick are at least almost as over in Japan as they are in the US, along with the rest of the women, but I figured, again, trying to be quasi-realistic and, bringing, the Japanese fan base in here for the show, even if most of the fan base are, WCW fans in Japan, since WCW is really over in Japan. But, like I said, solid match, Colt and Busick get the win. And next match up is an interesting title match, which I honestly have sort of did a bad job building up, as I really didn't do enough angles. But, it's Alex Wright, the United States champion, since Starrcade, taking on Jamie Knoble, defending the title. And this is a really solid, good match between two hard-hitting competitors. Noble's an asshole, but he's a talented asshole, a cocky, talented asshole who likes to put people in suplexes, put people in submission holds, to tap out and prove he's the best wrestler in World Championship Wrestling. But Wright is a really good wrestler of his own, has lots of technical ability, has Tori Wilson backing up on the outside, giving him pointers, and he has, thrown suplexes of his own, hits some big moves, and that started the match here. As, Knoble tries to lock in the guillotine early, Wright fights out of it, Wright, hits some big Northern suplex, big side suplex, belly to back, release suplex, Knoble fights back with, some big drop kicks, big strikes, taking Wright down, and again, locking him into a version of the STF, but Wright fights out of it. Knoble comes back, with some brawling of his own, hits a big, sort of exploder-style suplex on Wright, after exerting a lot of pressure, hitting a big couple knee strikes, taking Wright down, but Knoble, Wright again, the US champion again, avoids avoids the guillotine choke. Wright gets Knoble into the ropes, takes advantage, hits a big delayed suplex of his own, hits a fisherman buster for a near fall, then goes for his big single arm DDT, but Knoble blocks it. Knoble takes over, after a quick low blow, takes advantage, tries locking the guillotine choke again, but Wright, blocks it eventually, so Knoble has to go for a version of, goes for an armbar, and Wright eventually gets to the ropes. He fights out of it. Knoble, basically goes for the kill, and rolls through, locks on the guillotine choke, but slowly but surely, Wright wiggles out, knees out, hits knees, and eventually, slowly but surely, after being locked in it for a while, avoids passing out, and gets out of it barely. And then, with Knoble shocked, Wright hits a quick release German, a quick kick to the gut, and a single arm DDT out of nowhere, and 1, 2, 3, picks up the victory here to retain the US Championship. And yeah, I forgot, he won it at Super Bowl, right? Not the pay-per-view, my bad. regardless, a big win here for Jamie Noble, for Alex Wright over Jamie Noble. Solid match, nothing special, because again, these guys aren't, not the best, not the most over, and I didn't have the best background for him, but a really solid, mid-card, upper mid-card match here. As the match itself gets an 81, Wright gets a 76, Noble gets an 83. Color commentary ding, which I sort of expected, but a big one here for Alex Wright as he defends the title against Jamie Noble. And post-match, he and Tori celebrate to a 51. Solid stuff, nothing too fancy here, but a big win for Alex Wright here, with help from Tori Wilson as his manager, who has been focused on him since they both went through Revolution, and it's a very successful duo so far here on Revolution. So then it's time for our second legend match, as first comes out Sting to a 68, and big pop from the crowd as Sting is a legend here. But then out comes Shinya Hashimoto also to a 68, into the shoes of the crowd as he enters put over his long career here in Japan. His legendary battles with people like Muto, Tenryu, and others, Chono, and other well-known stars. Puts over his, kick martial arts based style offense. They even throw it in his background, that when he was on excursion in America as a young wrestler, he, became obsessed with Elvis Presley and began, styling his hair after, which place it has sideburns and his look. But now it's time for Sting and Shinya Hashimoto, a big legendary battle between two of the biggest stars of the 90s and now legendary competitors here in 2005. And it is a legendary battle, which means it's not a 5-star match, and it was never expected to be a 5-star match. It's 2 stars here. Sting's not quite as over in America, in Japan, as he is in America. He's also been off TV a little bit, and honestly, he's a little worse in ring. He's a little bit more down on the downward spiral of age, as opposed to Hashimoto, who's still really over in Japan and who's still really good in the ring. But this is a match of Sting, honestly, kind of getting the shit beat out by Shinya Hashimoto. Sting does get his offenses. He gets a howl around, he gets hit Stinger Splash, he gets to, no-sell a little bit of Hashimoto's offense and, do the, Sting no-sell stuff. But this is sort of Hashimoto gets to look good here. Hashimoto gets to hit his big martial arts kicks. He gets some big forearms. He gets to throw around Sting. Sting gets to fight back himself. Sting does get to early on. Sting hits the big Stinger Splash. Sting hits the Scorpion Death Drop and locks on the Scorpion Deathlock right in the middle of the ring. But Shinya Hashimoto powers out of it early and then hits some big strikes. Hits a big Northern Light suplex for a near fall. But Sting fights back. He goes for the Death Drop again, but Hashimoto blocks it. And then from there, because this is a quick match, just to put over both men, as Sting hits, Hashimoto hits a big savate kick, big, couple series of big, strong style kicks, eventually hits a big single-armed ET, picks Sting up, sheer drop brainbuster, 1, 2, 3, and a big victory here for Shinya Hashimoto over Sting at Rising Sun Revolution in front of 38,000 people at the Saitama Super Arena. And this gets a 77. That's sort of what I expected. Hashimoto gets an 80 here. Sting gets a 68. Nothing too fancy, too terrible. Just a straight up ahead match where both men get to look good. And Hashimoto gets the win here because, Sting's not a full-time guy anymore, so he can do the job without much of a problem. Obviously, because of the overness in US difference, Sting wasn't happy about this, but that's what money is for. But yeah, and then Sting and Hashimoto do a handshake post-match, raise each other's arms, get the 68. That picture gets to be in Weekly Gong next week. But there we go. Solid match, and sort of what I expected and what it was on the show to do. Now we're rising to the top of the card here, as it's time for America's Most Wanted to defend their tag team titles against former tag team champions and members of the Triumvirate in the form of Lane Storm and Mike Awesome. Of course, Storm will also come out with April Hunter, but America's Wanted come out with their backup as they announced last week, Masato Tanaka, and Tanaka gets a solid pop from the crowd here. Tanaka's, not the biggest star, but again, bringing some, the FMW crowd and, the whatever ECW fan base there was in Japan that remembers him in Awesome's fights. But again, but he, doesn't really get involved in the match till later. As early on, this is a very solid, really good tag match between two of the best tag teams in the business. As Storm and Awesome work well together as they've been teaming up, basically off and on, kind of for basically the last 4 or 5 years. And of course, AEW are one of the two most rising stars in the business today. Multiple time tag team champions and one of the best tag teams in the business. And this, basically, AEW are doing their brawling and double teaming. Storm does his, technical stuff, trying to lock in various, submission holds, hitting a big super kick on Storm in the middle of the match, and then locking him on the Canadian Maple Leaf, only for James Storm immediately make the save. James and Harris do some double teams of their own, but Storm an awesome fight back. Awesome, gets to come in and do, play bully ball on both Harris and Storm, tossing them around. But Harris, eventually, it's a long, segment in the middle with James Storm playing face in peril, with Storm, locking in submission holds. Awesome, just, clubbering with punches and kicks. Eventually, Awesome goes for the big Awesome Bomb, but Storm slips out of it, sends Awesome into the corner. It's a rolling reverse great for near fall. Hits a big sort of like tosses Awesome to the outside. Tags Chris Harrison for the babyface fire. Harris is able to hit a big dive on Mike Awesome on the outside. Then Storms face off and fight in the ring. Big 4-way brawl. April Hunter tries to get involved, but Masato Tanaka picks her up, over his shoulder, and, basically sends her, brings her up to the top of the ramp, places her there, points at her, tells her not to move, and then Tanaka heads back to the ring. The fight continues. Back in the ring, Awesome goes for another Awesome Bomb, but Chris Harris actually comes and does like a sort of chop block. There we go, chop block on Awesome's knees, or Storm does it as Awesome has airs up for a power bomb. Harris gets a near fall, but then things break down again. James Storm and Storm end up as the legal men. Storm ducks under a super kick from Lance Storm, hits a big suplex of his own, picks Lance Storm up. 8-second ride, 1, 2, 3, and AEW retain the tag team titles. Second title defense of this reign, 77 overall. Chris Harris gets an 80, James Storm gets an 83, Mike Awesome gets an 84, Lance Storm gets an 88. Again, I'm probably criminally underbooking Lance Storm, because, he's getting 88s. I mean, he's really good in the ring. He's still not great on the mic or anything. But, I'm probably criminally underusing him for the past couple of years. Regardless, he's great. They're all great. What thing this match, as you can see, it should have been 83 just looking at the ratings, is, again, the announcing, and also the storyline wasn't that hot. But still, a big one here for AEW as they retain the tag titles. But it's not over quite yet, as Storm and Awesome are not happy. Basically, and they go after AEW, but they forgot somebody is in the ring, and that somebody is Mike Awesome. Not Mike Awesome, but he is Masato Tanaka. And Tanaka comes in, he and Awesome basically face off, and as AEW rolls up to the outside after tossing Lance Storm out there. And then Awesome and Tanaka go after each other, with Masato Tanaka eventually hitting Awesome with the Diamond Dust in the middle of the ring to the cheers of the crowd, and then rolling out and raising AEW hands in triumph as the crowd cheers, as this gets a 77. Fun stuff, and again, just a little angle there to put over Tanaka and, give him a moment here. Nothing too terrible, that really hurts Awesome, as Awesome has been just through a, big world tag title match, but a big one here for, big moment here for Masato Tanaka after AEW retain the tag team titles. Now it's time for a women's world title match, third from the top, as it's Tricia Skye defending her title against Gail Kim, as, Tricia Skye came into the company, Rising Cup, and won the title at Starrcade, but Gail Kim, still thinks she's never really got truly her shot to win back her title after dropping it to Joanie Laurer last summer. But now here she is getting her one-on-one title shot, after becoming, trying to claim her spot as head bitch in charge after, you could argue that she helped create the women's division here, recreate it here in WCW, Now she's here to take the title back from Tricia Skye. And this is a really good match, as Gail Kim and Tricia Skye, are both really good in the ring at this point, really quite over, especially, for Women in 2005. And this is a really just superb match, as, Tricia, Gail Kim goes on offense early, going right at Tricia Skye, trying to get the quick win. And she actually goes up, she hits a few big moves, Northern Light suplex, German suplex, capo kick, super kick. Then immediately goes up top for the eat defeat after only a couple minutes. But Tricia Skye kicks out hard after 2. And then, Gail Kim takes over. Tricia Skye takes over, with her own, forearms, kicks, hits the chick kick, again, kind of early for near fall. But then, match slows down a bit as, they try to lock each other in holds. Gail Kim, Tricia actually powers out a bit, hitting a big fall-away slam on Gail Kim. Then she hits a, big crossbody, getting a near fall, picks up Gail Kim, hits a big backbreaker followed by a suplex, goes for the sky's limit, but Gail Kim turns it into a powerbomb. And then Gail Kim goes for the eat defeat once again, but Tricia gets out of the way. Tricia takes over, hits a big few moves on offense, throws Gail Kim, but eventually Gail Kim takes advantage after, getting an eye poke, throws Tricia Skye to the outside. Big fighting on the outside. Gail Kim, makes Tricia Skye eat the guardrail, heading back in. Tricia, Gail Kim goes for a sunset flip powerbomb and hits it for a near fall. But then she takes Tricia up top, going for a superplex, but Tricia Skye blocks it, pushes Gail Kim off the top. Tricia Skye flies off with a flying crossbody, but Gail Kim rolls through and almost gets the pinfall victory. Is able to hit a quick, hits a quick fisherman buster on Tricia Skye. Hits a chick kick of her own on Tricia Skye. Then Gail Kim goes up top and hits a huge eat defeat, 1, 2, 3, and wins cleanly the WCW Women's World Championship here at the Saitama Super Arena and for 38,000. As really good match, gets an 83. Gail Kim gets a 77, Tricia Skye gets an 88, and yeah, honestly, this, again, Tricia Skye is already insanely over. She doesn't need a long Women's World title reign, but I really want her to get, that big win at Starrcade, and now this sort of moves things forward, because, Gail Kim can feud with some people sort of in the upper mid-card, while Tricia Skye has her own storyline to go after this, but a really great match as Gail Kim wins the Women's World title here at Saitama Super Arena. And post-match, celebrates with the title, gets a 71. So yeah, honestly, bringing people in overness is doing a lot better than bringing on charisma because of the whole language barrier stuff. But a really good night for Gail Kim, as she proves she's still one of the top stars in women's wrestling today, winning the world title. It's silly to sometimes think this game has it out for you, but sometimes I really think this game has it out for me. Because again, I've been really successful in this game, obviously, but sometimes there's stuff that's just really freaking disappointing, and this is one of these disappointing moments. So again, Palumbo styles, Palumbo, present, you could argue is the top heel of Revolution right now. Maybe Monty Brown, maybe, but regardless, AJ Styles, of course, rising star, huge victory over Eddie Guerrero at Starrcade, great 2004. Looks like might have a even better 2005. But here's the thing, unfortunately. In the ring, they don't click. And that is going to cause some problems, both for the long-term pushes of both men, because obviously I want both men at the top of the card, which means I'm going to have to get a little bit interesting as far as my booking with these two. But yeah, again, they both do, decent in the ring, even with the bad chemistry note, but this is just a disappointing match. And maybe I can put up the, some nerves of being in Japan, neither of these men being, AJ Styles not being AJ Styles quite in ring yet, and Palumbo never being a great worker, so maybe there's, there's some stiffness, a little bit of sludginess, a little bit of incompatibility with the match, a little bit of, just not quite, getting, meshing together well, Styles not quite making the fight here. But still, a solid back and forth match. Styles hits his spots. Big plancha hits the big flying forearm, goes for the Styles clash, but Palumbo actually powers out of it, hitting an electric chair drop. Palumbo doing his brawling, big boot on the outside, goes for full throttle, but he gets out of it. But eventually, near the end of the match, Styles goes for a big flying forearm, But Raven Raine shakes the ropes. AJL eats the top rope, big drops right down, falling right on the top rope. Palumbo takes over and eventually hits the full throttle. 1, 2, 3, and picks up the pinfall here in kind of a really quite disappointing match here, as it only gets a 76. A little over 17 minutes. Yeah, AJ Styles gets an 81. Palumbo gets a 78. So yeah. Color commentary didn't help either, but could be a lot worse. Yeah, worker chemistry. Palumbo inconsistency, but that wouldn't hurt things that great. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But the good news here is this feud is kind of over, at least for the moment, as Palumbo tries to get some further offense in on AJ after the match, when to a big pop, coming out in a shocking move to make the save and going after Palumbo is none other than Booker, as he comes out to a huge pop, as he actually, so here's the thing, I've been mostly rating people on overness or fighting, especially post-match stuff like this, but I actually rated Booker on entertainment, and that probably really helped here. Because he's overness that even with the language barrier, he still pops the crowd here, and, he comes out, and he just goes, he just goes after Palumbo. But still not quite a face turn, as, he does not help, he, hits a big, comes in, hits the axe kick on Palumbo, hits the bookend. Charmel actually, there's a bit of a catfight between Raven Raine and Charmel, with Raven Raine tossing Charmel to the outside, but they don't help AJ Styles up. Him and Stevie, Charmel and Stevie don't help at AJ Styles. Booker doesn't look to him. He just, Booker and Palumbo have a stare down, and it looks like we have a new feud here, as Booker wants some revenge. Basically wants his spot back at the top of Revolution, looking at Chuck Palumbo. As this gets 87, really good moment, and yeah, there we go. So this sort of makes up for the unfortunateness of the, semi-main here. But, good stuff. And then we have our main event. Monty Brown comes out, big pop, crowd, puts over his huge accomplishments here in WCW, almost being undefeated, beating Bill Goldberg, rising to the top here, and now here he is getting his opportunity for a world title match here at Rising Sun Revolution in Japan. He gets an 82, and then Rob Van Dam, the world champion, comes out, big pop holding the world title high as the crowd puts over, as the announcers put over. This is a different type of, competitor for Rob Van Dam to face off against here in WCW. Van Dam has faced lots of different opponents, but, he's never, really faced somebody in a big match like this, a man like Monty Brown. Let's get rolling. Both men are announced, we sort of do the Japanese style, ring introductions, and it's time for our main event for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. And it's sorry, I am just looking over the notes here. Oh, okay. So this is it's a really good match in ring, but there's something not quite there with everything else, because RVD is great, and Monty Brown's actually really solid at this point in the ring, and Monty Brown plays power. RVD, hangs around, hits some big dives, hits his big moves, but he also sells well for Monty Brown, throwing him around, as Monty Brown gets to look like a star here, throwing the world champion around, and looking really dominant in the opening parts of the match. RVD eventually fights back, Monty Brown goes for a big power slam, but RVD slides out of it, gets a sort of cradle, and then RVD goes back on offense, hitting his educated feet, big savate kicks, big spin kicks, takes on offense, hits Rolling Thunder on Monty Brown, then hits an aside moonsault, but then as RVD goes for another big split leg moonsault, Monty gets his knees up, goes back on offense, takes back over, throws RVD around a little more, big release ability suplex, sends RVD to the outside, hits some big offense on RVD, but RVD actually hits sort of a sends Monty Brown as he rushes at RVD, allows him to go over the table, through almost nailing the announcers. Randy Savage at ringside as clear commentator does not look happy about that. RVD then like is able to hit a big sort of like springboard off the table onto Monty Brown near the guardrails, sends Monty back in, but Monty goes back on offense, sort of throws it off, and Monty Brown actually goes for the pounce and nails it, but he hits it. That RVD actually rolls to the outside because RVD is that veteran competitor, knowing what to do. But Monty gets him back in the ring and gets a near fall after that. But obviously, if he would have been able to hit it solidly in the middle of the ring, that would have been it. So he goes for another one, but this time RVD gets out of the way. Monty Brown eats the mat. RVD immediately comes in, hits the Van Daminator, Rolling Thunder, up top, 5-star frog splash. 1, 2, 3, and your winner, and still world champion, is Rob Van Dam. And okay, slightly disappointing match as it only gets an 82. RVD gets a 90. Monty Brown gets an 84. So 87. Announcing color commentator ding, but also a little morale for RVD, which I probably should fix. Inconsistency. Again, honestly, I might be blunt here. Kind of a disappointing pay-per-view overall. I mean, again, I should have sort of expected this, as everybody's not quite as over as they are in the US, but I was really hoping just they really good matches. But I guess the announcing and color commentator was really hurting me. I wish it wasn't, but I don't know. Because Randy Savage, they both have solid commentary stats, but I guess they're not quite top tier, a show of a large company stats. But again, not the end of the world. As still a really good match that gets an 82. And post match, RVD celebrates with the title to a 72. As the crowd cheers, as he enters over, RVD still shows himself as the #1 wrestler in all the world tonight here in Japan, in front of the WCW fans in Japan. There are 38,000 people. Rob Van Dam still proves why he's still the All of Him show and the World Heavyweight Championship. So overall, this show gets us 82. Okay, not great, honestly. Kind of disappointing, but not I was sort of worrying that we would get a 80 or something terrible like that. So again, I honestly think we would probably be an 84, maybe an 85, if we hadn't. If the Sharpe Anderson match would have gone to the penalty, and maybe if I would have, and if without the chemistry notes, this probably would have been an 82, 83, which means overall the show probably would have been an 83, 84. But still, not the end of the world. So who actually did pretty great here? Lane Storm, you did fantastic. Honestly, and Hashimoto. And Tricia Skye did the job without complaining, so there you go. So, first thing here to talk about is, Skye One was not happy with our pay-per-view, which is unfortunate. Time Warner Cable also, let me look at the broadcast to see how I failed. Okay, so Time Warner. Okay, 84. Okay, I mean, and Skye One. Well, okay, if Skye One, let me just see here. Skye One Nitro is looking. So pay-per-view must have been probably mid-80s as well. So, but hey, so what you do here is you go Tiles. So yeah, Skye One was very big medium. Let's see here. Right, okay. So, but if we just do, we'll negotiate. So yeah, there's problem, collapse. But here's the thing that we do have is we don't have that. But again, because again, I mean, I this is sort of cheating, but also in real life, we're still doing great. But they wouldn't again. I get why they do this. I know why the game does this because they don't turn out shows, but they would not cancel you after Again, I get it, but also it's silly. I guess that's the best way to put it. But what am I looking for? Don't you hate when you forget what the heck? Investments? Yeah, there we go. Upgrade and own broadcaster. Okay, so right now, we're big in the British Isles, we're big in the US, so we just need to increase ourselves to at least medium in Europe. And then for events or broadcasting, yeah, and now, so just for the moment, the WCW quote unquote will just have pay-per-views for the UK and Europe for now. But again, not the worst. Could be a lot worse. So here's something that I messed up: is I forgot to make Rising Sun Revolution. I made Rising Sun Revolution accidentally a Nitro branded show because I'm a moron. So I'll have to fix that. But there was probably some people unhappy, which I'll have to throw some money to. But again, not the end of the world or anything. But again, just to look over some people on the roster as far as their overness changes. So let's just change this to Revolution only. So right, okay, yeah. So AJ Styles, popularity wise, still quite over, rising even with the loss. Again, Aja Kong in Japan was only, I think, only in the mid high 40s, low 50s. So that explains that as far as rating go. But again, Alex Wright slowly getting more over. Speaking of getting more over, Billy Kidman still up to an 81 after his big victory. I believe, what was the big up here? Yeah, beating Paul London, and then solid matches so far. Oops. We have Chuck Palumbo, who's up to almost like a 90s here. Like, yeah, he's like really getting there. Let's see here. Gail Kim with the win here. Jumps up to she's like a legitimate star now. Joanie Laurer. Laurer is down from like her heights of being like one of the most over people in the world. But she's still like really over at 84s, 85s. And that's, yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, yeah. Keenan Sharpe, he's been taking some L's, unfortunately for him, but like he's still solidly over. Like he'd be rebuilt pretty easily. But speaking of being pushed, Ken Anderson is like, yeah, he's up a couple more points, and he's like slowly getting over. Let's see here. Lane Storm gets dinged a little bit for doing the job here, but nothing too terrible. Meanwhile, and then let's see here. Mike Awesome also gets dinged a little for doing the job to AMW, but again, not the end of the world. Monty Brown. Monty Brown is equal, like he's at an 84. Well, he's been at an 84 for like the past 6 months. Ninja Cult as your new women's tag champion gets a big, gets a bit of a rise here as she's now in the high 50s, low 60s. As Manami Toyota, not that over in the US, but still, again, she's in the high 40s, 68 in Kanto, and still got an 83. Fun stuff. Paul London, still salty over. Ray Jr., after doing the job to Billy Kidman, is like down a bit. Like he was up to a 90, now he's on the 86, which is sort of what I expected. And Tricia Skye. Again, Tricia Skye down from her heights of like 88 89 she was after getting a couple big wins. But, that's sort of what you have to do sometimes. And then if we look at our champions, Chris Harris, pop-wise, he's up to a 72. He's been there for the past couple months. James Storms, pop-wise, is up to a 76. So he's actually getting like really solidly over. And of course, our world champion, Rob Van Dam, 88. That might be his pop cap, but nothing in the world. Creative-wise, RVD, Goldberg, Eddie, Ray Jr., Canyon, top guys. Who's Hot, Booker, Canyon, Shawn Michaels, Bill Goldberg, Jan Storm. Title holders, again, still, your first Women's World Tag Champions are Western Music and E Cult. Your 3-time Women's World Champion is Gail Kim. Still, your 3-time champions are AMW. Still, your US champion is Alex Wright for the 2nd time. When did Wright win the title for the first time? Oh, right, way back at the beginning of my save. Right, I totally forgot I did that. And then, still your world champion, Rob Van Dam. So, honestly, like, kind of a disappointing show. Like, again, could be a lot worse. Like, could have been a lot worse. But, now onward and onward to Wrestle War, which is an actual Nitro branded show. So we'll see who RVD faces for the world title there. And, what other matches, what other feuds continue to bubble up. But again, little schedule note. Next week will be, next Monday will be the usual, Nitro Revolution, last week of March. Wednesday will be the first show of Ring of Honor, as I want to, continue that momentum. And then we'll go back to the, alternating weeks. And then Friday will be, of course, as is tradition on this channel, me taking over WWE for WrestleMania. And then, everything back to the usual cadence from there. But that's it for now. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and give it a like, comment below what you're enjoying and not enjoying, and of course, subscribe to our channel for plenty of TEW 2020 content, including this series, my Ring of Honor series that I'm just starting up with Cody Rhodes in charge, my New Japan 2004 series, and who knows what other stuff I might get up to. But that's it for now, so talk to you later, and adios. Have a good one.